This is our first virtual story time. It's kind of
Yeah.
we are talking about Expo.
Yes. So, what is the story from when you went there before we were a company and you just had like shots in your backpack? And it sounds like you were like hustling a little bit, but also looking at what
Yeah.
the competition was.
In the interest of people kind of liking the startup and early stage stories, it is sort of one of those. It's also not unique. Like it's a way that a lot of people get going or find or kind of like try to start to worm their way in. But yeah, I mean, I actually am a little ashamed to admit, like I've done a few shows like that even since we've been like a real company. Just like, the ones on the East Coast just kind of go with my backpack. But yeah, that was really how I got started and first started kind of getting samples in front of people. We did like a pilot run down at the production facility just to see if like the product would taste good and be food safe and all that. And so I had like 50 bottles of each of my 3 flavors, and they didn't have like labels on them or anything. It was like stick-on labels. They said like Ethan's Corporation or whatever. And so yeah, so I had this like kind of big backpack, which now they crack down on for obvious reasons, but
Yeah.
back then it was still a little wild. And for anyone who doesn't know, I mean, just like any industry, there's a bunch of trade shows in food, but there's 2 that are really kind of like supposed to be, in theory, the natural food ones, although those have been diluted a little bit. But really where like most brands kind of get, at least start to build awareness around them and start to put stuff in front of buyers, but you have to pay a lot of money for a booth. So it's still in like the exploratory phase, seeing what if people liked it. I just brought like 150 of those shots in my backpack, and I was like trying to book meetings or like make contacts and get samples in front of anyone, obviously any like buyers but anyone who would listen or potential investors or anything like that. So kind of going to all the happy hours just with like my big ass Topo backpack on, and obviously like the funny thing when you do that is like as you're handing out samples and stuff, you want to seem legit, like you want to seem professional, but at the same time I'm like, shit, am I running out of samples here? Like I had a count going in the back of my head, like I have 21 turmeric apples left or whatever, over the 3 or 4 days of the show. So actually a lot came from that, whether it was like people connecting me to suppliers or potential investors or even smaller stores that might be interested in buying it or whatever. But it was still just a really good way of getting the product in front of people and having like a physical thing that people could taste and touch and feel and smell was like a really good kind of first step for getting in front of a lot of people. And that without that show that I did like that, I mean, we probably wouldn't have ever really gotten going. So
True. So, like, I'm assuming you got like a ton of good reactions. Like,
very mixed. I mean, I remember giving it to like one guy who basically like spit it out, and then this woman who later became our investor, but like she was like, oh, let me see what you've been working on, and then she kind of tried it, and then she was like, well, you'll figure it out. Which we did, but kind of mixed reactions. But I mean, I've said like the negative reactions are just as valuable at that stage. Obviously every industry is different, but sometimes like those just doing things scrappy like that, we could have easily paid like the 20, found 20 grand and gotten a booth, and then found 10 grand and printed like enough samples with labels on them, but it probably would have gotten me to about the same place, which was getting a lot of good feedback from people in the industry. So yeah, sometimes smuggling, although I don't recommend smuggling when the shows come back anymore, because I think they'll like throw you in expo jail.
but worth it because you didn't have to spend all that money and you still got everything you needed. And now we're here.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, I mean, we've kind of, I've sort of continued to do it that way, even as we've grown. Like we've participated and gotten booths in a few shows, but I've also done some where like I'll bring kind of, I'll just go on my own and bring a sample of something we're trying out and kind of, and do it that way still. So I don't think we'll ever really stop, kind of being scrappy like that.
It's scrappy. It's our nature.
Yeah.